everything is geared towards how do you imbibe in yourself the customer centricity, because that's what you take to the workplace, and anything and everything that you do through the lens of customer centricity. But we also gave you the limitation of customer centricity. Too much of focus on customer is not good at times. Then you miss out the other stakeholder. Who is that? Yeah, myself, the employee, right? So too much of students have focus. So suppose all that EW is trying to do is make their students happy, right? But in the pursuit of making you happy, they must not make me unhappy, right? Or me, my colleagues, or people like me who are at the workplace, right? So I'm just one part of the cake. There are other admin staff. They must not make them unhappy. Because if they are unhappy, how is your processes going to be working? Your LMS, your design and things like that. The front office, right? And that's where this week's agenda will come into the picture when we talk about how do we use this understanding of service to understand people, to manage people. People here primarily means people who deliver service, not people who get service. So till week 9, what did we learn? Till week 9, we learned everything to make customers happy. Week 10, we spend a little bit of time in understanding the other side of the funnel, that is the employees. So when you are doing line of interaction in your team project, interaction between whom? Everybody is doing a team project or service blueprinting, right? And trust me, we also did service blueprinting in my 2 days of design workshop. And all these guys from Water Corporation, Western Power, they were surprised that there is some sort of a technique like this which exists where we can bring them together, right? So between whom interaction happens in the line of interaction? Anybody? Sorry? Between whom the interactions happen. So you have line of interaction in your service blueprinting, right? Line of visibility, line of interaction. So between whom? Who are the parties between which or among whom the interactions happen?
Organization, employee, customer.
Organization, employees and customer. So an organization, what is an organization? Anybody? What is an organization? What is a company? What is a company? It's a company, but I ask you a fundamental question. You have spent 3 years of your life as an undergrad at UWA. I ask you a fundamental question. What is a company? Google it, you'll find it on Wikipedia. Their formal definition of a company. And one part of that definition is? It's a group of people.
Whose objective is to profit.
Whatever, forget about objectives.
Yeah, whatever.
Forget about objectives.
Whatever, yes.
But a company is nothing but, at the end of the day, a conglomeration or a coming together of some of the people. Like me, my wife, and 3 or 4 other people, we started a not-for-profit organization 3 weeks ago. That's an organization. That's a company, but not for profit. We are not making money there. But our agenda is to unite Indians in WA. That's the ultimate objective of that organization. So we have named it United Indians of WA. That's the name of our organization. Right? So no class, no creed, no religion, nothing. You can be anybody who has remote connection to India. Come to us. We have an offering for you. That's the objective of our firm. But a firm, at the end of the day, is nothing but a group of people. Now, you can obviously think, what happens to technology? Think of Uber. How many employees Uber has? Right? How many employees Ola has? How many employees Airbnb has? Right? Everything happens seamlessly via technology. And where is the role of employees in that firm? Airbnb. Anybody? Airbnb, right?
Are you talking about the people like the front who are controlling the app or running short run?
Whoever, right? You have a technology, right? Now, Airbnb, Uber, Ola, you name it. They are the companies who have redefined the way you do business in these sectors, right? You don't need people at the front end, like you need at a university, like you need at a hotel or hospital. You don't need people at the front lines, right? But you still need people who manage these technologies, right? If something has gone wrong, for example, like my wife was in India a few months ago and she was availing a service of Uber. And for a distance which should charge about 150 Indian rupees, they charge 550 Indian rupees. And she said, I've been traveling this distance every day, why are you charging 550? And then the guy said, the driver, it's not my fault, ma'am. Must be a technical glitch. He gave the number, why didn't you call the local office of Uber? Apparently there is a local eastern office. If there is an issue, you call them and they sort this out. So she calls the number, guy takes the details, within 2 days she gets the refund of whatever extra was charged for some reason. Because the charge depends on time of the day and the distance, right? So the point that we are trying to drive home here is, no matter how advanced the technologies are or have become, the role of people still stays. Because what technology will never have, and we will come back to this next week again, because next week is on, what is the topic of discussion next week? Service Encounter 2.0. And we'll talk all about technology. No matter how advanced technology becomes, technology will never, at least in the coming 20, 30 years, will not have one element. And that is, technology can be very smart. It can predict what you will buy next time with a higher degree of efficiency, customization, but they can't have one element. At least, if I live another 20 years, I'm sure they will not have that element. It is emotion, not intelligence. They have intelligence. They will not have emotions. Right? That's a whole philosophical debate. Should they have emotions? I'm not getting into a philosophical debate, okay? Right? So, practically, you can make a humanoid, right? You can make a robot. And people are making robots. There are robots. We'll talk about some of those next week. And one of the robots was fired by a Scottish retail firm. A robot being fired by a company because he was not doing a good job. So the robot will not have emotion. It can recognize your face from facial expressions. It can identify whether you are happy, sad, unhappy, and it can accordingly customize its response. But it will not have a heart. Right? So when you need empathy, please make a note of this. Empathy, E-M-P-A-T-H-Y. Technology still will fail. And this is where we should be proud of as human beings, right? We still have the ownership of one element, and that is empathy. We can still show empathy to others. And empathy in service, if it is missing, it's no service. Does that make sense to you? You can make everything, but if you subtract empathy from that service, it's no service. So you should be happy that you are still a human being of flesh and blood and a little heart. Right? So today's objective is to primarily get into the role of service employees, the key elements in another framework, and this is another important framework that you should keep with you when you go to the workforce, service profit chain. So we'll talk about service profit chain, and finally we spend on yet another framework, that is service triangle. Service triangle and service profit chain are used by companies even today. Although they originated like 30, 40 years ago, they still are being used by companies. And this is one of the reasons for which Autobahn, one of the automobile service companies in this part of the world, they started with a new tag called, "We are putting service back into automobile services." Right? And I was surprised, do I have a student who is working in that organization who was a part of this service lecture? Because we often use this term in our service lecture and discussion, that one thing that we miss in Australian services is service. We have everything but service. And these guys have picked that up. And it's actually working for them. They're getting good reviews on Google. They're getting good reviews on other review platforms from customers. They are probably good at showing empathy. Anybody can service a car, right? It's a standardized process. You have a list. Go through the list. If oil change is necessary, change it. If vacuum filter is necessary to be changed, change it, right? Whatever is needed, you do. But where do you differentiate yourself? How do you differentiate yourself from an Automasters? How do you differentiate yourself from, say, Ultra Choice and others, right? How do you differentiate yourself if you are an auto services? How do you differentiate? Anyone? Anybody can give a standardized service, right? If you take your car for a servicing, it's a standard procedure given by Australian legal system, the Australian government. You have to go by 70 point, 100 point auto service. Anybody can do that. Then how do you differentiate yourself when the service is so much standardized? Say it again. Personalize the service. Personalize the service. Do something extra, like Toyota is doing at the Melville Center. They have opened a barista cafe for its customers, free of cost. I've seen at say, Osborne Park, Mitsubishi. That was the place where I bought my Mitsubishi, right? You go there, they have a good customer service, but it's automatic. There is a machine, you go there, press it, get your coffee, biscuits are lying, fine. But how Toyota Melville is doing, if anybody goes to Toyota Melville, just go for a visit. You walk into the service center, to your right, you have the barista cafe, to your left, you have the service center. Right? And there's a nice seating arrangement, it looks like a cafe. But the difference is, you're not paying for your coffee. Somebody else is paying for you. And you get your own coffee. If you want an extra hot cappuccino like me, you get that. And there are 4 types of cookies you get. Trust me. So I asked, can I take a cookie from here? He said, please help yourself. So not one. If you want to eat 2, 3, 4, you can eat. That's what is my experience. Now, do you feel good about it? I do feel good about it. Right? Will you feel good about it? If you are taking to Melville Toyota and somebody says, okay, you wait for us, have some coffee, in the meantime, we'll get your car ready. Right? And then they have a drop-off service. If your car takes 5 to 6 hours, they will have a dedicated car service. If you want to go within a radius of 10 kilometers, they will drop you. Everybody else is doing in the city. Are you aware of this thing? Anybody aware of this service in the city? If you go to any service center, most of the car dealers, like Toyotas, Hondas, Mitsubishis, they will have a drop-off service. So you drop your car, they will drop you where you want to go within a certain radius. So everybody else is doing it. So probably Toyota Melville is asking, if everybody else is doing drop-off, how do I differentiate myself? Right? So maybe they are spending a lot of money, trust me. Hiring a barista, having that customized coffee, cookies. I've seen bananas as well. Right? And there is a nice water filter. Hot, cold water, you get it. Am I differentiating myself? Via this? Anyone? Am I differentiating myself? I have Toyota, Melville Toyota. And I'm sure other Toyotas are doing the same thing. Right? Yes, I am differentiating. And this is the key takeaway from the unit. Be customer oriented. Always strive for, how do I differentiate myself? How do I say I'm different? And then I'm clearly saying I'm different, you know. Everybody else is giving me a machine-made coffee. Now I have a barista-made coffee for you. You know barista, right? Baristas are the people who make coffee for you, not the machine. So I have the people element. So all that Toyota is doing is bringing back the people in the equation of services. Is it making sense to you? Right?
It also, in our perspective, provides more jobs as well.
Yeah, it is. At least that lady is getting a job who is at the behind the machine. And I'm sure there are more than one person on that role of barista. Because one lady cannot do the job for 7 days a week. So you have a roster going on. So you at least have 3 to 5 people employed in that service. Right? So this is how, it's an example of a company who is bringing back the people element. When more and more companies are getting rid of the people element, there are certain companies which are bringing the people element back in the service. And this is what we are trying to understand today. Can you use people as your distinguishing factor, differentiating factor? Because empathy can only be shown even today, 2019, by people. You can have the most advanced robotics, but they will still lack empathy. So empathy can be shown only by people. So you still have a differentiation factor, and that is people. Does it make sense to you? Now, in your PowerPoint slide, you will see 100 companies to work for 2017. I forgot to change that. The new one is there, 2019. The last time I taught was 2017, right? 2019, the list has changed drastically. So in your list, you will see the companies are different. In this list, some of the companies, the top 10 has changed. And if you see the top one, who is Hilton? Sorry? A hotel company. So one hospitality and hotel has come. Salesforce, again a service provider. Software services, right? Yep.
What do they mean by this?
Oh, that's again a philosophy. You should have taken a bachelor of philosophy. This is just one list. LinkedIn has their own list of top companies to work for, right? So when I say 100 best companies to work for, there is a method. There is a statistical method to go through this, a research method to identify it. So there must be some indicators, employee satisfaction, job conditions. There are so many factors to consider when there. So if you read this report, which is available online on Forbes website, Forbes, F-O-R-B-E-S. So they will have the methods as well mentioned, how they have done it. But working conditions, job conditions, salary, employee satisfaction, there's a whole lot of list they take together and they try to list the Fortune 100 companies. Fortune 100. Sometimes they do it for Fortune 500, right? So go on this. The whole point here is to look at the factors which make them successful.
Sorry, what's the difference between Fortune 500 and
100 and 500.
Sorry, 100 and 500.
100 is like the fortune, it's selected by fortune, like
Literally like 100.
yeah, the number.
Yeah, okay.
100 companies, 500 companies, the number. The point that we are trying to drive home here is, when they are creating this list, the list is not based on how much salary you get. The list is not made of how much functional benefits you get. List is based on whether you would like to work at that organization. That's it. Whether it is an inviting workplace, right? Like, not everybody wants to work at all types of universities, if you are in my capacity. If you give me 100 universities to work, I will have my own list. Given my credentials, I will choose where I would love to work. Given that I know certain universities, how they treat their employees, like me. So I'll go there, right? Of course it does. It does help. So if you are, like, on your first floor, you will see that we have gone from improved 5 places in the world ranking of universities. Have you seen that? UW has improved 5 places. So we have now in the 90s, top 90s from top 100. Okay? Why do I use that? I'm just using, I'm reinforcing, I'm a quality place to come. Same thing I can do when I need high quality employees to work for me. So Hilton is no Hilton if Hilton does not have high quality people to work for you, right? Because people deliver service. Am I right? You might have the world-class hotel facilities, but if you don't have people, because who will deliver the service? People. And if you don't have good people, you cannot sustain this advantage. Does it make sense? So people brings advantage primarily in the service sector, plus your core product. So how do they differ, these companies? There is a whole list. I'm just taking 5 or 6 companies. How do they differ? Anyone? How are these companies different than others? This is not in your slide. This one slide I have changed. How do they differ? What is so different that people would love to come and work for you? The employee management system. The way I manage you. For example, like, as I think I might have told you, this is the longest that I've worked at an organization. This is my 6th year at UW, right? On an average, I worked 3 years in my life at one company or an university. 6 years is a long time. It feels like I've become a part of the furniture. Right? But why am I here? I could have left 3 years ago. When I was looking at my CV, and I just found out that I have worked on an average 3 years at workplace in the last 17 years that I'm working. And this is the longest I've worked at one place. And I was trying to understand, why am I working with UW so long?
The good facilities,
Maybe facilities? Anything else? Environment? Sorry? Pay? Yes, pay. I will get better pay if I move to East Coast. Trust me. If I find a job in East Coast, Melbourne, I might get 10-20% extra salary. There is a Sydney loading, they call it. So I might get 20% extra salary. Is it worth it? With the facilities and the environment and so on and so forth, the list goes on. But when I dig deeper as an employee who is working, I find that I'm happy here. More than benefit, I might earn 20 grand more, 25 grand more if I go there. But I see that I'm happy here. I love to come to work. And my daughter, who is just 10 years, she asked me, do you love to go to work? Such an innocent question, but such a powerful question. She said, do you love to go to work? I do. Do you love to teach? I do. Do you like your work? She asked me these questions. Do you like your work? I said, I love my work. I don't like my work. I love my work. Then she asked me, what is it that you love in your work? I said, I get to see people. I get to talk to people. Right? I get to influence people. These are the things that keeps me going. Does it make sense to you? Right? So UW has certain elements which hooks me on. And they just promoted me to an associate professor level. That gives me another bump, okay? They value my credentials. So I'm not going to go anywhere in the near future. Does it make sense to you? Right? So how do we differ as UW? People don't want to come to Perth, trust me, to work. They don't. It's very hard to bring an academic to Perth to work. They prefer to go to East Coast. So if somebody has come from America, we have some American scholars at UWA. We have scholars from Europe, mainland Europe. We have scholars from Britain, Scotland, Ireland, who work here. So there must be something that we are holding them, right? And that is this thing, the culture. Culture is the glue which sticks people together, which keeps people together. Right? And when we think of service, we move this company culture with service culture. Right? So I come here, I work, I'm a part of the ecosystem of UWA, right? Business school. But when I'm delivering service, till date, I have not disappointed any of my students, if they have emailed me. None can say that I have not got a response from this guy. At least you'll get a response. I will try to resolve an issue. This is my responsibility to take care of you, right? That comes from the overall culture of the organization. Right? And this is what we call as a service culture. What is a service culture, if I ask you? What is culture? Culture not of society. Culture in an organization. There are two types of culture. One culture that you have grown up in, right? Right? I've grown up in. And there is another culture where you work. And that I mean to know, what is that culture? Culture in an organization. If I ask you, what is the culture in your organization? Do you know that? You have a culture?
Yeah.
What is that culture?
The culture is to provide, community.
Community. That captures in one word, a sense of community. Anybody else would like to share? Who work? What is the culture in your organization? Yeah, you work as well, right? Yeah, tell me. You must know, and this is the gap we must fill. As an employee, you should know the culture in your organization. If you don't know, the company is not doing a good job of telling you or training you. Yes, that is the value. That is the culture. That's the value system, right? It's not a sense of community, it's a sense of togetherness in a family, right? That's the culture. What is the culture of UWA? UWA Business School. Quality is the culture. one of the cultural beliefs is quality. Quality research, quality teaching, quality destination, where you end up as a student, right? Those are the ingrained values here. Honesty, respecting others, these are the values and cultural values. So every organization has a culture. For example, Singapore Airlines. What is the culture of Singapore Airlines? Southwest Airlines. What is the culture of Southwest Airlines? Four Seasons Hotels. What is the culture of Four Seasons Hotels? Four Seasons Hotel has featured in top 100 companies to work for the last 5-7 years, consistently. What is the culture? The culture is, and you should know the culture of the company that you are working for. Because if you don't know, do you know the culture of your family that you have grown up in? Do you know the culture of a family that you have grown up in? Do you know your value system? You don't know. That's a shame. Right? Any Australian, like, do you know the culture of this Australian society? What captures the culture of the Australian society? Yes? What captures the essence of the Australians? I'm not an Australian, I'm an outsider, an immigrant, right? What is the culture of our Australian society that captures the ethos of Australian society? It's mateship. That's one word. In one single word it captures the essence of Australian society. That's the value system. Over and above everything, it is the mateship. Right? In our Indian society, it's called Atithi Devo Bhava. That's our society. Atithi Devo Bhava means our guest is just like our God. That's the way we treat our guest. Right? That's our society, like Indian society. What is your culture in your organization? Do you know it? If you don't know it, make an effort to know it. Because unless you know your culture, you cannot deliver service. They know. Most of the times they know. Just like in the pursuit of making profits and revenues, at the end of every quarter I need to show numbers, right? Sometimes we lose the vision, the sight of it. But I have not known any company which does not have a culture. It will have a good or a bad, at the least you will have. And then you spin down. Because culture has certain components. And one of the cultural components of Four Seasons Hotels is treatment of people. How do I treat my employees? Because if I treat my employees well, they will treat the customers well. That's their Four Seasons Hotels culture. Right? You can have any number of things, but that's the culture. Another culture in this place is support. I still remember 2014 when I came, I had a horrible semester. That was the worst teaching feedback I've ever got in my life. 2015, semester 1. Or 2014, semester 1, something like that. And I was thinking like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? And then I sat with my senior professors in the department. I said, this is the outcome and I'm not happy. Where did I go wrong? And at the end, what came out was, I did not understand how to teach in Australia. Right? How to teach in Australia is so different. How to teach in Britain, how to teach in India, how to teach in America. Australian students are so very different. They need a different way of support system. Right? That was my learning. And then I tried to imbibe support in my units. Whichever way, online support, email support, any physical support I can give you. I will try and impart it. Trust me. And my feedback has gone on and on. And my best feedback was last semester. It has taken me 5 years to reach that level. Okay? Best means it was the best of my life so far. Right? So the point that I'm trying to drive home is, it's not enough to attain competitive advantage. You need to sustain it. Can you please make a note of it? So people can give you competitive advantage if you manage them well. Right? But it's not enough to have competitive advantage. You need to sustain the competitive advantage. You understand competitive advantage, right? How are you different or better than your competition? You need to sustain that. So it has taken me 5 years. Year on year, my teaching feedback has improved. And I attribute that to understanding you. And I attribute that to under my university support system. They have supported me. Senior professors have supported me. They have given me feedback, understanding that how I can deliver better. So it's not only teaching. It's teaching plus other things. Does it make sense to you? Right? So it's the culture which drives or keeps people. But there are 4 things, and that is related to culture, that every service firm needs to have. And this is coming from a Harvard Business Review article. What is your core offering? And this is, we are going back to week 3, right? You remember the core service, a core product and supplementary service? So any service will fail if you don't have a symphony between these 4 elements. And the first element is the core offering. Right? What is a core offering, by the way? What is core offering in a service?
Like the main selling points.
The main. Can you expand on it? Sorry? It's the core product, not the selling point. We are in a marketing class, not a selling class. That's the first point of difference, right? Yes, selling is important, but we are in a marketing class, right? So the core offering is the core product. For example? Yeah, example, I'm asking you. You said core product, right? Yeah, so now expand on it.
Selling alcohol, the product,
No, service.
or service,
We are in service.
usually offering the lecture.
UW are offering education, not lecture.
Yeah.
They are offering education services, right? So their core service is education. And then I do what I do. Community service, so on and so forth, right? The funding mechanism, how do firms price their service? Now if you take UW as a service provider, take Hilton as a service provider, what does Hilton do? What is the core offering of Hilton? Shelter is your WA housing service can provide. WA housing service can. Any hotel promises a good night's sleep. That's the core offering. But the difference is, how do you price it? Right? Because if you don't price it properly, what suffers is your revenue. Third, and the most important that I have highlighted for this week, is the employee management system. I have the core offering. I'm 100 years. So UWA is more than 100-year-old now, right? You know that? Are you aware of this? UWA is, the age of UWA is more than 100 years. Excuse me, are you a part of this class? Please, this is so distracting. You're so in front of me. I'm sorry to distract you because you are distracting me. Third is employee management system. So we are 100-year-old. We are offering education services. But I'm not taking care of my own employees. Right? What happens to my core offering? Who is going to teach you? A robot maybe in future? Right? But he will come, teach and go. He will not talk, laugh, show emotion, show love, empathy and so on and so forth. So how do I manage my employees? And finally, how do I manage my customers? So long we have understood a lot about customers, today we'll spend a lot of time about employees. So these are the 4 building blocks of a successful service organization. A service firm. Right? Any questions on this so far?
So is it possible, what if the employee management system is not good? Can the customer service system that gets compromised?
It does get compromised. It does get compromised. Now you look at any example of, I'm not managing my employees well. Who is the largest retailer arguably on the planet? Walmart. Physical retailer. Walmart. Arguably the largest retailer. You know, Walmart has made its life out of one thing. What is that? What is the USP of Walmart? Unique selling proposition of Walmart. Everyday low price. So Walmart is Walmart based on pricing strategy. And they have done fantastically well in America. But after 10, 20, 30 years, employees started raising their voice. Because what Walmart was not very good at was managing their employees. Especially, it is argued or alleged that Walmart was not great in managing female employees. Right? So there is a nice book, possibly if you get time you can read, The Bully of Bentonville. So it talks about all the negative things of Walmart. And one of that is their employee management. The Bully, B-U-L-L-Y, Bully of Bentonville. Bentonville, it's a village in America. B-E-N-T-O-N-V-I-L-L-E. Bully of Bentonville. And one of the problems that they cite is, although my customers are happy with my product because the price is low, my employees are not happy. Right? So when do you need employees if you want to exchange a product? You come to the service and you say, I want to return, exchange, anything can go wrong. Who can support you? The first line of contact is employees, right? And they were unhappy. So Walmart has been criticized for a long time for not managing their employees well.
Like one of the challenges is for Walmart, I guess, is like you have low prices, which means you can only pay your employees so much. It depends how much the CEOs and the corporate takes into their pockets and redistributes to people. But then it's like, okay, so Walmart has low prices and they pay their employees like this amount, which makes sense in that scenario. But when those employees then go somewhere else, and people don't, the other businesses don't have that same value of everyday low prices, it's like, oh, but I can't buy things outside of that.
Yeah, I know. So people still go to Walmart. But it's the problem arises when companies, or when people don't want to work for you. That's the thing. Because employee turnover rate is very high in retailing sector. People come, people go. People come, people go. It's a challenge always in the retailing sector to hold on to an employee for a longer duration. Wherever people get higher salary, they go. But how can you make that barrier high so that even if they go get a better salary, they stick to you? Because salary is just one component of the offering, right? Now spend a little bit of time on reading this one, and then we will again take it from there. Can you pass this on to him? It's like a 2-minute read. Did you finish reading? So, what is your take on this small read? There are 4 cases here, right? Small conversation. What's your take from these 4 cases when we relate it to service culture and managing people for services? What's your take? Yes. Frontline employees have a massive impact on how people perceive you, the company. Right? You can be the best in the business. But if a frontline employee screws it up, then you are gone. Right? Your attitude towards, and you might have read attitude in your Consumer Behavior 101. Because attitude is what affects people's behavior. People come or go based on positive attitude, positive perception. Right? So it all boils down to how you treat employees and how employees interact with the customers. Yeah.
I also think that it was talking about the times that there were like bad experiences, and I think all of them that had in common for the bad experiences, they didn't feel acknowledged.
They did not feel it.
For the good experiences, the employees went out of their way to help them, right? And this is what happened. Almost all of you fly, right? In airline, you fly, right? Or you have flown. Now, one thing that has substantially changed at airports is what? Security.
Of course, security has changed as a result of terrorist attacks and things like that. But there is one more element that has changed. At almost every airport, self-check-ins. Right? There was a time when you will queue up, right? You have to arrive 3 hours before the plane departs, right? I still remember my first airline journey, 2007. That was the first time I boarded a plane in my life, right? To leave my country and go to a foreign country. And I did not know. So my dad said, 4 hours before the flight departs, you should reach the airport. I said, okay, Dad, we went there, right? Today, even if I have to go to America, maximum 1 hour before the flight departs, I'll reach. Maximum 1 hour 15 minutes or 1 hour 20 minutes, not more than that. Why? Because of web check-in. I have web checked in, I just need to go and drop off my luggage, that's all. You can print your luggage straps and you can tie on your own if you know how to stick them together. And you are on your journey. So what airline companies have managed to do is, they have managed to automate this check-in process. And you can automate it by removing people. So move people out of the equation, it's automated. Right? It has its own effect. Trust me, I don't know how to strap those things. You know, that luggage strap, you remember, with a barcode? I still don't know how to stick them together. And I was faced with all sorts of difficulty when I was traveling to India last January. And I was traveling to Singapore, I went there, self-check-in, I took everything I did. But when it came to weighing, and it came to strapping, there was a difficulty. I don't know how to stick them together. If I don't stick it, I can put it on the rail. And I was looking for help. Where is help? In the remote corner, I found someone who is positioned just for customers like me, who cannot help themselves. So he came for my rescue. So the point that we're trying to drive home is, you can automate the service. It's a classic example. Retailers are doing this. Woolworths is going to implement this very soon, where you don't need to stand in front of a teller counter, like a counter, to scan your goods. They call it Amazon Go or Woolworths Go. Amazon had this, now Woolworths is planning this. You just fill your bucket and start, and everything gets scanned automatically. It has its own pluses and minuses, right? So, but still, this interaction is important. And this is what we are trying to drive. How you make that interaction a good one. You have examples of bad ones and good ones. Technology is taking out this interaction. So what is your job if you are in this space? What is your job? Suppose if you are in this space of technology, interaction, what is your job tomorrow if you are managing such a service? What is your job if you are managing this service? Anyone? When everything is getting automated, you don't have to come 4 hours before. You don't have to scan the products, it gets scanned. What is your job then? manage the automation, one, and two, how to bring back the people element. People still need people. So your job is how do I bring back the people element in the service equation. So there are two fundamental questions that we want to strive to. What makes our employees reasonably able to achieve excellence? In this world of high automation, how do I make sure that my employees are happy, skilled, and ready to work? How? How do I make sure? Any comments? How do I make sure that they are still able to achieve? You don't need to come to a class like your friends, right? Everything is recorded. You can just go stream it. It's the world of streaming. You can stream the audio, sit in your couch, watch Netflix, and have the lecture on your earbuds. You can do that. But you have chosen to come to the class. Why? You are still craving. At least 10 or 15 of you who have consistently come to the class, you care for that human experience. Rest, they're not bad, but they are using technology to help them. They maybe have other responsibilities, right? So they can listen to the lecture at their convenience. But how do I make sure that people like me are still active and achieving their excellence as a company? It boils down to training and development. How do you train your people so that they keep updating their skill sets? Right? So I just mentioned to you, a week ago, I was in a 2-day workshop. It was funded by UWA. It costed me $800 for a 2-day workshop. It was not funded directly by UWA, but from my research account. But still, it's the UWA's money, right? They spent that $800 because I made a case that I need that for my own skill development, okay? Now my wife is a dental nurse. She had a training yesterday, 5 hours training from Bupa on certain implant. How do you implant? So how do you assist a dentist when he is conducting or she is conducting an implant surgery, right? And Bupa will give a certificate. So I'm making sure that in this world of high automation, how do I make employee skills relevant? Training development is a classic still tool to do that. What makes your employees reasonably motivated to achieve excellence? What keeps you going? Most of you work at some place or the other, right? What keeps you motivated? What wakes you up in the morning if you're going to work? What keeps you going? Motivated? Anybody? What keeps you going to work? Paycheck. That is functional motive, right? Very classic functional motive. Anybody else who goes to work not only for paycheck? People. Not only people, it's the social motive. People means social motive. I want to go see people, meet people. The first thing I did in the morning was came and saw a friend of mine who brought some sweets for me. Right? Some treat is from Indonesia. So he gave me some sweets. He said, okay, well done. I had some sweets. We spent half an hour together. You never get that if you don't have that space. Anything else that keeps you motivated? It's money, it's social motive. I want an environment where people care for people. Anything else that keeps you going to a work? Career progression. Is there anything else that the company does for me? Do they spend money so that I get trained? Tomorrow if my wife decides to leave that company, Bupa, she can leave, but she will leave with a happy memory. Because the certificate that Bupa is providing her, she can use it to get a better job at a different company. So Bupa knows that very well, that out of 10 that they have trained, 3 or 4 will leave them in next 2 to 3 years. But leave them on a high note. Right? That's career progression. So there could be n number of reasons for which people leave or stay. But the point here is, how can I motivate people to stay with me? Work for me. And work for me with heart. Not just, I come, do my 9 to 5 and go home. Right? Go on. Give it. Go on.
I see working 9 to 5.
Yeah?
So there's the old The point of life is to continue living, and every person is trying to survive. Every living thing is trying to survive at the end of the day, right? That's the point to life. Now, before we had money, we had to go out hunting and gathering in order to survive, right? But nowadays, right, the way it works, so if I'm sitting here, right, in the old system, I'm worthless. In this new system, if I happen to be sitting in the right place, you know, typing a computer or talking to people and scanning barcodes, I now have money. And that money lets me buy food to survive. So now hunting is now getting money. And it's now hilarious the fact that I can just stand in front of the screen, talk to people, scan their barcodes and give them food, and that lets me survive. And it's now, that to me is just like, it's great. Now, everything moving forward, it doesn't matter, right? What you do for work, because it's just hunting.
So what you are doing is you are drawing an analogy.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have read the book called Sapiens. Have you read that book?
No.
You should read the book, because this is what, in the book, he talks about hunter-gathering nature of human beings and how we have come to this place. So that's called the history of human Homo sapiens. That's the way to put that book. I'm like 1/4 into the book at the moment. And all that you have said is the case that the author makes in the book, The Sapiens. That how we have come from a hunter-gatherer, and then the agricultural revolution came, and then we started living in colonies and societies and the power sharing. We are not getting into that debate here. We are getting into a debate that, and 9 to 5 is an industrial revolution thing. When we had an industrial revolution, people wanted to work 9 to 5 because that was the stipulation. That between 9 to 5, you are productive, you are giving your best, and then you go home, relax, next day come 9 to 5. That's the gift of industrial revolution, which we have not yet worked out, whether that's the best model for today. Some of the companies like Google, Amazon, they are working it out, that whether the 9 to 5 of industrial revolution is still better for us. We're not getting into that debate. What we are getting into is, if I come to work, what is the motivation that I come to work? It's not only hunting, it's not only survival today, it's much more than that. You don't need a $100,000 salary, paycheck to survive, trust me. You don't need that. Food, shelter and clothing doesn't cost $100,000 for one person or a family in a year, even in an expensive country like Australia. It doesn't cost $100,000, $200,000. It's what we do with our life that costs us more than $100,000, right? So we'll not get into that debate. What we are saying is, if I wake up in the morning, when I come to the job, what brings me to the job? What is the motivation? Because your motivation is squarely related to productivity. If you are productive as an employee, that is closely related to your motivation. If you are motivated by money, you work to a certain level. If you are motivated by emotion, you work to a different level. There is enough research evidence to support that. Right? You should read that book. You will like it. The Sapiens. The title of the book is Sapiens, the History of Homo Sapiens. That's the name. It's from a professor from Oxford University. Right? We are talking about values. So with this, we will take a short break. One example, there are so many other examples of values. One company that you have done so far is Zappos, or possibly you are doing this week, right? Week 10 activity is Zappos. So when you read Zappos, anyone knows what is Zappos? Who is Zappos? It's an online shoe retailer, but Zappos is now with Amazon. If you go to Zappos website, which you can go right away, you will see on Zappos' website, they have core values, and this is what I meant when I started the discussion today by culture. And Zappos clearly mentions this on their website. And people are trained and educated on the values of Zappos. So if you start from the top, deliver wow service, that is the clear cut. Whatever it takes to create a classic or memorable experience, you do that. I might have shared with you this story, that a customer calls in the middle of the night, I want to buy pizza. And they said, we are not pizza company, we are shoe company. But this guy says, okay, hold on. And after 10 minutes of search, the employee on the phone found out who are the pizzerias which are open in New York, downtown. And gives the address and details, and he goes and finds pizza. This is not my story. This is the story shared by the CEO of Tony Hsieh, on a TED Talk. So they go out of their way to help customers. So if you see, the first value is do whatever it takes to create memorable customer experience. So I'm a shoe company, but I'm advising you where to buy pizza. How many companies do it? Right? Embrace and drive change and all for the, but the third one, if you see, create fun. How many of you decide or define your work environment as a fun work environment? Do you like to work? Is it fun? Depends on who are you with, right? Do you work? Where do you work? Sorry?
House, like kitchen store.
Yeah, is it fun? Not really, it is not fun, right? So clearly we see why Zappos has fun as an element of their culture. So when you come to work, if you have fun, you want to come again. Because as human beings, we love to have fun, right? So you are going possibly because you want to work, along with your studies, to get an education and some experience. You are going there, right? And maybe sustain yourself. That's the purpose. But if I create a fun environment, who knows? After graduating, you stay with them. Right? But at the moment, it doesn't look like from your facial expressions that you're going to stay with them, right? so that's the whole idea. How many of you have passion for your work? You have passion for your work? Sorry? That's not your job, right? So you don't have your heart yet because you might be waiting for your right opportunity. Where do you have your passion, right? I found my calling in education, teaching, research. That's my passion. Whatever I do with this, not this. Right? So this is just an example of a company which has created a culture around these 10 commandments. They call it 10 commandments. Right? So on that note, we will possibly take a short break, meet again, and do those two frameworks and close. Right? So let's take a short break.
With regards to the proprietary study, if I see Ms. Sue, I can ask her if she can review a part where I think I deserve a different grade.
Yeah, of course, you can talk to her. Just send her an email and say that you want to discuss. And
Or could
make
I
your
just
case.
maybe after the tutorial just ask her if
Yeah,
she
yeah.
can review it.
Of course, should be fine. Depending on how much time she has, because I know she's going through a tough time at the moment. Her mother is not too well. So that's why we are delayed on marking some of the assignments. So just seek that whether she has time to talk to you, and then possibly you should, because her mother is not well. And I'm sure there's another family member in her family who is not well. So she's going through a rough patch now, right? So yes, seek her help if she has time. Of course, it makes sense to talk to her. Right? Yeah. No, fine. Excuse me. Okay, there is a small reading on your desk. Please read that before we start the next leg of the session. What is the key takeaway from this reading? Finish reading, all of you? What's the key takeaway? First of all, is there a takeaway? Yes or no? You're free to say no. You don't have to oblige to say yes. Yeah. What is the key takeaway?
So it's a company that pays the employees to continue their education.
Right. So what's the key takeaway? That's the fact. What's the key takeaway? What you stated is fine. It's a fact in the case, right?
To make their employees the best employee they can be.
Is the best employee that they can be. Anything else? Say it again.
It brings value to company.
It brings value. What brings value?
One to 1% return on investment.
It's an investment, right? So you are investing in your people. This is just a small example of the question that we were asking just before the break. What keeps you going? What brings you back to work at a certain place, right? So Cigna is a classic example of a company whose USP is, I invest in my people. So in the present times, there is a debate going on. What is the debate? Anybody aware of? It's the tech versus touch debate, right? It's the debate like whether technology is going to replace all of the employees or technology is going to augment employees. Right? This whole idea of artificial intelligence, deep learning and things like that. The debate is whether the technology is going to replace or augment employees. And this is a company which believes in augmentation, not replacement. Right? Now artificial intelligence can do its job. But this guy says, if my employees can pick up certain skill sets, which they want to pick up, I will reimburse the fees. So I am providing what? A culture in an organization, and that culture is the culture of organizational support. Does it make sense to you? Support in training and development, career progression, some of the things that we discussed. So it's not only stories that we are telling you for the last hour or so. There are examples of every bit that we have discussed in practice. And this is another example of a company which supports its employees. Because they believe if my people are not happy, if they are not well equipped, they cannot serve the end user. It's a skill that matters. Right? And all of this in capture. And if you remember, what did we do in last week, week 9? Anybody? What did we do in week 9? Put some pressure to your brain. Yes, we discussed about how to create and build customer relationships. And our entire discussion was around customer loyalty and customer satisfaction. How to create customer loyalty. Now today what we are saying, what has been the core of our discussion so far? We are asking the questions like what makes employees happy? We are asking the question that what makes employees to come to work? We are asking what makes employees to stick to a company, right? To work for a company for long. There are people I know at the business school here who has worked for 18 years. The other day I was in a board meeting and I met 3 people who I have never met before, who have worked for 18 years. I know them by names, but I never met them physically. And I met them physically. 18 years is a long time to work for a company. So there has to be something which binds them, which keeps them.
I mean, part of it is job security.
Job security is a big thing, right? If I can provide you job security, which not every company can provide you, in today's volatility, do not think that our job is also secured. We lose jobs as well, right? But there is a company which has created an environment where I feel safe. But you need to work towards that goal of feeling safe, right? So there is a job security. 18 years is a long time to work for that. I know at least 3 people who have spent 18 years at this place. Long time, right? And that's the objective. That I hold the quality people, they deliver quality service. Right? So last week we talked about customer loyalty. Today we are spending a lot of time about how do I make my employees loyal and then bring them back. So if my employees are happy, my customers are going to be happy. That's the assumption. But that's not an assumption. That's a tested path, relationship. The workshop that I mentioned to you, there were 2 ladies from an organization, I'm not mentioning the names of the organization, who came. And they were saying, we are so impressed with this idea of happy employees, happy customers. And I was just sitting beside them in a table, and I said, we are teaching this to our graduates for the last 20 years. Happy employees, happy customers. Right? It is new to them. I was saying that if I was a consultant, I could have sold my services to them. Right? Because they were looking to understand how to make their employees happy so that they can make their customers happy. Is there a framework? And that framework is service profit chain. Service profit chain. Right? It's very much related to, or close to, I should not say related to, Porter's value chain framework. How many of you know Porter's value chain? No? Nobody knows Porter's value chain. What is value chain? Porter's value chain for what does it do?
The process, like you see the points where value is created.
Yes. When you manufacture a product, how do you add value to a product at each and every stage of its production? From sourcing the raw materials to finally delivering the product. Say for coffee seeds. So when the coffee seed is sourced from Ethiopia and finally ends up in a cup to you, how do I add value to each and every place? Like Australia is very good at value adding in roasting. There are some roasters in Australia who are very well established. So we are good at adding value there, right? Service profit chain is like that. It demonstrates 4 relationships. 1, employee satisfaction, retention and productivity. All that we are trying to make case from the minute 1 is, if my employees are happy, they are going to stay with me, they are going to work more for me. Does it make sense to you? If they are happy, they work more for me. If they are happy, they stay with me. So retention is, they are staying with me. They create value for me. Customer satisfaction and loyalty we know. If my customers are happy, they're going to be loyal. Right or wrong? How many of you are loyal customers of any service? Who are those? Yes? Who are those? Any example of a loyalty that you show? Sorry? You show loyalty to Woolworths. So you are happy with their product. So you show loyalty. Anybody else? Spotlight. Oh, Spotify, sorry. I was thinking Spotlight. Okay, Spotify. So you have your reasons to be happy. And hence you go back to the service again and again. And finally, your revenue grows. All that we are doing is, how do we link them up in a framework which companies can use? And this appeared in Harvard Business Review long ago, 1994. This framework is from Harvard Business Review article. You should read the framework from left to right, not right to left. Does it make sense to you? Read the framework from left to right. So all that we are trying to make the case from the morning is, how can I make my employees satisfied? So we had job security, training, paying for people's education, all of this comes at here. Job design, workplace design and things like that, right? That makes my employees happy. If they are happy, they will stay with me. If they are happy, they will work for me. And that creates external service value. External service value is, why do you go to Spotify?
Because I got what I want.
You get what you want. That is external value. Right? I go to Singapore Airlines because I love their service.
So the interesting question is then, right, you see how the revenue growth then goes back into the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if the company, like the better the company is, it makes you more money, right? Look at that profitability.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that not going back into the business as well? That's money that could be making the business better.
Yeah, right.
So, why does it then not? Like, it should, right? If you're going to make it, so is that just...
Are you talking about the feedback loop?
Yeah, I'm talking about I understand why. I understand why it's so like that, that's how you pay the people. But if you make that paying the people part of your cost already, then you just keep putting the money back into the business and it'll automatically give the money back to the people.
So we'll come to that. Let us first understand the framework.
Okay.
Anybody who can explain the framework to me? Or to us? What is the framework talking about here? In the previous slide we said the framework is linking these 4 stages, right? So happy employees, happy customers leads to profits. This is the chain. Happy employees, happy customers, profits. Does it make sense? Because if customers are happy, they are loyal. That's what is the graphical representation. And if you see the arrowheads, that means if my employees are happy, my employees are with me. I create value for my end user is happy, they come back to me. And more customer loyalty means they're buying from me often. And I have sales growth, and I have profitability, which feeds into the system again. So all that this framework is doing is mapping the relationship between, if I can make my employees' life happy, they will make my customers' life happy. That is the whole idea. Right? But this can be tested using statistical techniques, using primary data collection. They have tested it over and over again in banks, in retail sector, in hospitality, in hospitals, and they have found that these paths work. Right? So today they use the term called happy employees, happy customers to represent service profit chain.
So when you talk about happy employees, I guess you're also touching on the emotional and also the physical.
Yeah, of course. The functional as well as the emotional. An employee is not only happy with paycheck. There are companies who pay you so well, but they don't take care of you. Right? Like Google is another company which pays you well, at the same time takes care of you. They pay for they have unlimited sick leaves, Google employees. Right? I gathered that. Unlimited sick leave. Can you imagine? I have limited sick leaves. My wife has limited sick leaves. She thinks twice before she goes on a leave and plans her holidays, right? Google employees, they don't have to worry, they have unlimited sick leaves. If they fall sick, they fall sick. Like we have if you fall sick, we have 2 to 3 months of the salary is taken care of, and then you are unpaid. But that is also a benefit, right? So that is what we mean. It's not only the money, it's money plus all of these, workplace, job design, employee selection, all of these matters, right? It's not only money, it's money plus. Is there a superannuation scheme? Is there an employee insurance scheme? Those are the added thing that people look for. Like yesterday, my wife went for a training of 5 hours. She did not have to pay a single dollar. Everything was taken care of them. They paid her training fees, they fed her, right? What else you need? It's not only money, it's money plus. It's not only function, it's function plus emotion, right? And over the last 30, 40 years, this framework has been tested, retested, and on most of the occasions, or on all of the occasions, the conclusion is, if I make my employees happy, more often than not, they will make my customers happy by serving them well, right? Right, because they are the face of the company. A frontline employee is your brand. Frontline employee is your face. If anybody can serve you, it's the frontline employees. Right? Any questions on this? This is quite a big one to digest. I suggest you go back, spend a little bit of time on this, and let it absorb in your system. Trust me, people are applying this even today. Because when I say put back service into the Australian services sector, I mean make your employees happy. It's still a hire and a fire system, right? So, yeah.
And there's some people suggesting this kind of method instead. So with the profitability, that goes back, instead of going to one person in particular, goes back into the company, but then you pay people out through dividends instead. And so if your company is more successful, you can pay your employees more, which means like the employees want to work harder because like they can get paid more at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because they work harder. So that's the interesting. That's the only thing like I don't understand. Yeah, why wouldn't they just then put the profitability back into to then have dividends?
No, it is, I think, we are not saying this is the end of the road. What happens to profit? It is not the end of the road. But what we are trying to show here is that if you start with the employees, make the employees happy by designing their work, by payments, by additional benefits, work environment, then they will go the extra mile to serve the customers. And if you go the extra mile to serve the customers, and if the customers are happy, they become loyal to you. They buy more from you. They avail your services multiple times. And that over a period of time generates more revenues, more profitability, higher profitability. What do you do with that? It goes into the system. So it's not, this arrow does not mean that it's only revenue growth that goes into the system.
Right. Okay,
It's not. Yeah. It's the financial performance. Both profitability and revenue growth can be captured in one construct called financial performance of the firm. So happy employees, happy customers, better financial performance for the company. These are just 2 measures of financial performance. But if you speak to a finance guy, he will give you 10 more measures of financial performance. Like return on investment, return on assets, Tobin's Q. There are so many other factors. We are just showing 1 or 2 here. But it should be financial performance of the company. That should be captured there, right? And trust me, it's a very useful framework. If you want to apply at your workplace, you can apply. People are applying at I have told you, one of my MBA students, he is applying at Fiona Stanley Hospital, just down south. And he says, it's fantastic. He's an ITIS officer there. And he tells me all these stories that how they're implementing these happy employees, happy customers kind of a framework. So I get a lot of satisfaction out of this, that someone is actually taking this and going to the industry and applying it, right, into the hospital service. Any comments, questions on this? Is it making sense? All coming together. So we are trying to link week 9 and week 10 now.
And all that you have done from week 1 to week 2 to week 9 to week 10 is culminating into our discussion. That all that we have done to core product, supplementary product, has gone into making customers happy. But the missing puzzle is the people element. You bring that, and that closes the loop. Now, if you look at some of these guys, the Four Seasons hotels, that how they make their employees happy. They start from recruitment, selection, training, recognition. When I give you the first reading, one of the comments was, I feel acknowledged as an employee, as a customer, right? Employees also need recognition. Do you need recognition if you want to work for an organization? Do you crave for recognition? You don't crave, but if it comes to your way, you'll feel good.
Yeah, you like to feel appreciated.
You like to feel appreciated in your own job, in your own role, right? When I'm working as an associate professor, I want to be acknowledged. I want to be recognized amongst my peers, right? That recognition, Four Seasons Hotels imbibes in their strategy. And that's why Four Seasons Hotels is such a company. And one of the strategies that has worked for Four Seasons Hotels is, it's an expensive hotel, but they make their employees avail their own services. Does it make sense to you? So I create an opportunity for my own employees to stay at Four Seasons Hotels. So they stay at Four Seasons Hotels. They avail the services firsthand so that they know what it feels like becoming a customer. So next time, when they serve the customers, they try to give the 100%. Right? So I'm giving my employees a first-hand experience of my service so that they give that to the customers. That's the whole strategy of Four Seasons Hotels. Okay, with this we will close. The service triangle. Any questions so far? Is it making sense to all of us? Right? Yes, no, maybe? We discussed service triangle a while ago, if you remember. We will try to integrate this with people element as well. So the service triangle is this. Do you remember this framework? So there are three parties in a service triangle. And to really understand and appreciate the role of people in services, we need to understand service triangle. And the triangle has three vertices, if you look at. One is employees. Two, the company. And three, customers and other stakeholders, right? So when you are managing services, you need to manage three types of interactions at the least. One interaction between employees and organization. This is key. We always focus on employees and customers and companies. We very less focus on how companies and their employees interact. Right or wrong? Right? I asked this question, do you know your culture? Some of you said, okay, I know, may not be. This is because the company is not very good at internal marketing. I'm not marketing my value proposition to my own employees. Right? So that is called internal marketing. When I have employees affecting customers, so at any front line, at any service, who is the face of the organization? The frontline staff. They deliver the service. So you always interact with customers. And that type of interaction or that type of marketing is called interactive marketing, where employees interact with customers. And finally, you have an external marketing phase. When you see the advertisement, Four Seasons advertisements on social media, YouTube channels and other channels, where companies directly talk to the customers. So there is a three-way process happening. So value creation does not happen just only by this or this. There is a interactive effect between three of this. So what we say here, in the context of managing people, that if you want to create optimal value for customers, you need to engage in three types of marketing. What are those three? Internal marketing. How do you interact with your employees, the company? Interactive marketing. How employees interact with customers. And finally, external marketing. We are very good at external marketing. Most of the service companies are good at external marketing. Some of them are very good at
interactive marketing, but many of them are not good at internal marketing. How do I do, or how do I market myself to my employees? Not many companies. The Fortune 100 that we started with, most of them are good at all of these three. Does it make sense to you? And this is the benchmark which they use to create the list. Right? That I'm good at this, and this. And that's what it will say. That when you are creating value, you create value for your customers by a three-way marriage. What is a three-way marriage? Marriage is usually two-way, right? Between two parties. It's a three-way marriage between human resource management, operations management, and marketing management. Marketing is not enough to manage service. Please make a note of this if you are managing service tomorrow. Marketing is not enough to manage service. You need to marry marketing with human resource management and operations management, and the result will be a beautiful child, and that is services and optimal value for customers. Human resource management, marketing management, and operations management. These three come together to build value or create value for the customers. This is a famous service triangle. Does it make sense to you?
What's the difference between human resource management and operations management?
What's the difference between human resource management and operations management? Anyone? Human resource management is all about how do I manage my human resources, my employees. How do I design their work? How do I design their role? What salary they get? What type of training and development they need to go through? All of that is the responsibility of human resource management. Operations management is all about my procedures and processes. Right? You remember the 7 P's of services. One of them was processes. So for example, you have placed an order on Amazon website, and Amazon promises that you will get the product in 7 days. So if your operation management, your distribution management is not in place, you will never get the product as promised. So that's the process of distribution in case of Amazon. It's the process of student experience management here, that is operations management. You come to the class, you go out of the class, you go to the tutes. You go out of the tutes, you wait for your end-term exam. But do you know what processes we go through so that every movement of yours is seamless? That's operations management. Right? And marketing management, you are an expert. All of you know what is marketing management, right? Any other question or comments? So this in a nutshell encapsulates the role of people in services. And these two frameworks you must take with you as an output or as a learning point from week 10 and all of the services marketing unit, along with some of the other key takeaways. One is service profit chain, 2, the service triangle. If you end up working in the service sector, trust me, it will help you in strategizing and delivering service. Right? Any other questions? This is what we planned for the day. Now in your tutes, you will do Zappos, and so we'll have our own perspectives, and you'll have a better understanding of